Hello, everyone. It's Art Hughes. Great to be here today with you. I am Art Hughes. I am joining from Orlando, Florida. We've got a couple of colleagues that are going to be joining. One's having some minor technical difficulties, but that's to be expected with live shows sometimes. So hopefully we'll have 4 participants total. I think now we'd like to introduce a couple of other folks, and then I'll give a little bit of background on myself and the other panelists. So, hi, Sachin.
Hey,
Sachin, CEO of 𝗗𝗶𝗴𝗵𝘁𝘀. Sachin and I work together at that firm. Sachin, why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself?
well, thanks, Art, and thanks for inviting us for this panel. This is really awesome show. Have been watching it for a very long time on all YouTube stuff. So, thank you. Yes, just from my background, I'm a very technical guy, really. So I have been into a data space for a very long time, 24, 25 years now. Have done a lot of major digital transformations and have been in AI space for almost 13 years now. I've been in AI when AI was not really in AI, it was called machine learning. And thanks to ChatGPT to giving it a more fancier name of Gen AI. So, and I've done a lot of big projects, have worked with a lot of different big companies throughout my career, and have really hold some important positions. And recently, I started a new company for which I'm the founder and CEO for 𝗗𝗶𝗏𝗵. It is all about data adaptation, and we use Gen AI to help companies get to trusting their AI stack through different portfolios. So that's
Perfect.
about me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. I think we can add another member of the panel as well. So we've got Kate. Kate, great to see you.
Hi, Art.
Give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Kate Francis. I'm coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a born and raised Hoosier. I actually am an industrial engineer from undergraduate school. Got into the data space about almost 20 years ago, and systems analysis and data business intelligence. And recently, in the last 5 years, I work here at the Heritage Group, and I oversee and manage the Microsoft tenant, everything business intelligence and digital productivity. So generative AI has been a big part of how that has affected the space that we operate in. I have a team that works with me that administers and manages the individual components of digital productivity and business intelligence here, but so we oversee the entire Microsoft tenant for about 3,500 users. And what makes this interesting, the Heritage Group is a conglomerate. So we have 35-ish different companies, all working independently within a single operating tenant. So our challenges are unique when it comes to security, for sure, and the user experience. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk to you guys about our learning and what we've run into from a Guardrails standpoint, and a little bit of chaos too. So really happy.
Fun, right?
Yeah, I got a lot of stories. But what we've learned and how we're going about changing the environment to make the technology more efficient and useful to people. So happy to be here.
Perfect. Welcome. I think we've got Rick. Rick, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Sorry about the technical problem, but here I am.
That goes with the territory.
Yeah.
As you know, I've been in sales and operations for about 20 years, and it's always, a challenge to get everything working on the AV side, but we're glad you were able to join us. If you give us a little bit of background about yourself, it'd be really helpful to
Sure.
some of your background and what you're up to.
Well, thanks for inviting me in. Good morning, everybody. I'm calling from California, the Sunshine State. So real quickly, I'm an organizational psychologist by training, and I've had what I like to describe as a jungle gym career. So I've been in corporate human resources in Fortune 500 companies. I've been on the faculty at Purdue and at Stanford, teaching in the business schools and the graduate school, and mostly in my own consulting practice, focusing on leadership development, doing executive coaching. But sort of midstream along the way, I had an idea I started a software company many years ago called Success Factor Systems. I led that company for about 6 years, raised a couple of rounds of venture capital, and fast forward a number of years, that company now is called Success Factors. So that was quite a journey for me. It was not something I expected. And since then, I've been on probably 7
No.
different advisory boards, all in the tech. I would describe myself and people who do what I do as trying to catch up with what's going on with AI. But people in my world are starting to talk about security and privacy and guardrails and wondering about things. So this is going to be a real timely conversation that we have today, but I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, and welcome everyone. Our topic today is AI without guardrails. Guardrails is a ticking time bomb. Say that fast 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, what we want to do is, as organizations, there's been this real rush to kind of implement generative AI across operations. But one thing is clear, without any guardrails, AI becomes a liability and not an asset. And we've been seeing a lot of real world cases lately where things like hallucinations have led to legal action, where sensitive data gets leaked because employees have put those kind of things in. What we want to do is talk about how guardrails really don't stifle innovation. We don't want to do that, but we need to be able to have a secure environment that we trust in order to make AI effective. So, I think I'd start it out, and let's just say, talk maybe from the beginning, and I'll just put it out to the group. There's this myth of AI being kind of plug and play. And we know that's really not the case. I mean, obviously, if you get onto ChatGPT or Gemini, yeah, it's plug and play. You type something in. But one of my colleagues said that deploying generative AI without any governance is like letting, a brand new intern send out emails to your key customers without, checking to see what they're actually sending. Love to get your initial thoughts. Please feel free to chat and talk a little bit about kind of your early experiences with either implementing Gen AI in your organization in case, with Rick working with potential clients, and Sasha and obviously leading a Gen AI company. So I think we got a great group of people.
Yeah. Well, I can do a warm start. I just remember one very funny story when Art, you were talking about this whole email thing, right? Just couple of days back, I was playing with some AI, fitness tools, right? So which really do a lot of big claims. So I started with giving my details, and then I started like, "Hey, is it me? Okay, give me a more balanced diet which I can follow, and these are my goals. I want to just lose weight and just be fit." So I was expecting it's gonna give me all that kind of yogurts, fruit, and so on and so forth. It did give me that, but on my surprise, in the end, it also gave me motor oil, and I'm not kidding, right? So I was like, I don't know. All of the sudden, in the end, did he started assuming me more like a lawnmower rather than a human? Right? Where it wants me to a motor oil. And I try to figure it out what's going on. And seems like, it has read somewhere in the blogs, because this whole app was being managed in such a way it goes to internet and see for things. And in some of the blogs, it might have read about something related to motor oil. And it started giving those suggestions. And this is a production ready app, right? I mean, you are using it literally on from the app store. So see the disaster that can happen, other than the funny giggle it gave it to me. That is where the whole guardrail comes in. You just have to be very cautious about what you're trying to put in place, how you are trying to manage it, and then how you tame it. I would like to, and then I'll give it to the rest of my colleagues. I would like to use an analogy which it's not mine, but it was given by one of my good friend. So that AI is basically was a baby couple of years back. Now it is a toddler, right? So exactly the way we teaches our kids how to grow into a better and a best person, that's it is exactly we have to do with the AI also. We this AI is still learning, so we have to teach AI how exactly it should be reacting ethically and under the guardrails and limitations towards the society.
That makes sense, Session. Kate, I'm sure you've seen in real world practice, and feel free to use other examples besides your own organization. We certainly don't want to. We know the Heritage Group is very respected, so we don't want to put anybody under the bus. But love to hear some real world examples or things you've heard about. And I know you're very active in the Indianapolis community as well.
Yeah. So, when these models first hit the market, right, our security team shut none. We were like, none, zero, block every website. No, we're not using Copilot. No, 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 no. And that was sort of this knee-jerk reaction to, well, just like Sachin said, what is it looking at to get its response? What data is available to the AI, and is the AI able to see data that it shouldn't see? And so we also, as a venture capital company, we have a lot of startups that work underneath us. We deal with a lot of PII. We deal with a lot of intellectual IP and PII, right? So we have intellectual property and we have personal information. And frankly, when all of this kicked off, we looked at our security environment and said, oh, wait, time out. We don't know if we're ready for this. So, Sachin has funny stories about people, asking these production ready AIs, and asking it simple questions and getting weird answers. Well, you cannot run that risk when you're dealing with the type of data and information that we're dealing with internally here at the Heritage Group. So we have done a real slow roll into the Copilot or any AI space. And I mean, I've seen some funny things about the responses that the system gives you, but from my standpoint, I started using it not so much asking the system questions, but I was trying to use it as a personal assistant, trying to figure out, help me rewrite this email so it sounds more friendly. Simple things. Or can you help me organize my calendar? I feel like I have too many meetings. Do I have to go to every meeting this week? Right? Can I let the AI go to the meeting and then just read the notes from the meeting? Can I trust notes that that the AI is giving me is working for me? The funny thing I have to say about AI, which I do not understand why this is, but when it's calling everybody else, so if we have an AI right now recording this meeting and it's going to summarize the conversation, it'll call Art, and Sachin, and John. I get Francis. I don't. Half the time I get Francis in a meeting. I don't know why it doesn't recognize the fact that I have two first names. That's fine. Maybe Francis is more popular than Kate. I don't know.
Possibly.
But yeah, the AI doesn't realize that I actually have a first name.
Great. Well, I those are all interesting examples. I want to move over to Rick. Rick, in your background as an organizational psychologist, in conversations that we're having, particularly with IT security, the IT security side of the house, there was always this thing called shadow IT out in the world where basically people were using unapproved applications on their corporate computers or the company work laptops. And it's something that I'm sure Kate and Sachin, working in the IT group, saw all the time and tried to work on and possibly prevent. now we're seeing that shadow AI is kind of becoming the new shadow IT, and that essentially most of the recent research shows that over 50% of knowledge workers at least utilize AI on at least a weekly basis. But almost 70% of them haven't informed their supervisors that they're using it. And strangely, about 5% of the people out there openly admit that they've put sensitive or confidential data into an open LLM. Rick, just based on your background, I'm putting you on the spot a little. I guess some of this is human nature. And how are the organizations you're working with kind of what are you seeing with regard to this?
Well, that's a great question. So I'm going to put myself in a category with probably the majority of the people are going to be using AI. And I mean by that is non-technology people. I like to refer to myself, actually, when I was running Success Factors, they used to call me the crash test dummy. And they said, well, if he can figure out how to use this thing, then it's okay. It's ready to go to market. But here's what I'm seeing. I see people jumping on this very quickly, partly because they think they need to, because everybody else seems to be doing it, and partly because they want to see if it can help them in some way. So I think that people, again, like myself, lots of other non-technical people, are very, very in the early stages of adoption of using things like ChatGPT to help them write a paper or summarize notes from a meeting, and finding interesting ways that they can use this to save themselves time. There's now starting finally to be some evidence that it has an impact on productivity, depending on the company and the way that they've set up the usage of the tools and the platforms. But like a lot of other things in our personal lives, I honestly don't hear people talk very much about privacy. I don't hear them talking very much about giving information online to ChatGPT or some other tool or platform, personal information. I don't know how much they're worried about it. It's almost the metaphor I was going to use was, imagine yourself standing on an on-ramp to a freeway and all these cars are going by. And the cars that are going by are all the people who are already far along in using some form of AI. People on the on-ramp are trying to jump in, but they don't know exactly where to do that because they want to catch up. So they're not paying attention. I think that's the point of the story here is I don't think they're paying attention to the kind of personal, private information that they might be providing. And that worries me because unless these guardrails are put in place, and there are some ways for people to feel protected, I think we're going to have some real problems down the road.
Yeah, agreed. I think we've got a question from the audience. All right, for Sashin, who's going to train AI? How to respond ethically and with security? Is the AI model? Is it the AI model providers or the consumers? Reminds me of the Zelle credit cards as a product. Who gives surety to consumers that they are protected?
Okay, so basically, very good question. You know, basically, what's going to happen? It will be a combined effort from the model providers, consumers, as well as the middle layers. So forget about AI. Go back in time when we started using our computers, right? And then all of the sudden, what started happening is all kind of viruses started attacking the computers, right? Then what happened? As and when computer got more progress, they were more security guarded. But then again, there were antiviruses as well in the market, which came in place, which took care of that major security issues which was happening. That is where we will be heading towards in the near future. There will be guardrails put by each of these LLM providers, but imagine these LLMs are really vast, right? It takes time to train them, it takes time to kind of tweak them up. So whatever the security threats we are seeing right now, those are more advanced as compared to the LLM models getting changed. So there has to be a middle layer, and there won't, like, soon enough there will be a time when we all started using some kind of firewall, VPN, whatever we want to say it, which will actually protect us. between these LLM models and our private informations altogether.
Yeah, and Sachin and I were talking about this previously. I did a proof of concept with Dapto this year, and his model is one of those buffers in between. But we've all been hacked. We've all of us. It doesn't matter who you are. Your personal information is out there somewhere, whether your insurance company, your bank, your hospital, your credit reporting agency, the hotel you stayed at, your social media provider, somewhere along the line, we've all been hacked. Our personal information is out there somewhere. And I think to some extent, we've become a little passive about it, right? It's like, well, all right, well, now I got LifeLock because all my stuff's already out there. But that's the part that kind of scares me, because I don't want people to be passive about using AI. I want people to understand that that it's very easy to get accustomed to using a model and then give it something it really shouldn't have. Give it information that then trains the model on your personal information, your company's information, your intellectual property. And I'm always concerned about the passive nature of people, like failing phishing campaigns, right? People click on links. They don't, we don't understand that malicious links are out there. The bad guys are getting more and more and more clever. And so, the passivity of being hacked, I always worry and wonder about, have we taught people to be too passive when it comes to being security conscious? And I'm talking just at the user level, not at a highly technical level. If you're at a highly technical level, you're probably, you got LifeLock and you're being very, very, very careful about your personal information. But that's not true of your average user. And I think Rick, that's why we have Rick here to talk to us and help us understand from the sort of the social side of things. How can we help our users understand the level of risk that they're operating under without freaking them out so badly that they don't touch it? Because it is absolutely an amazing productivity tool. We're using it all the time. Digital productivity and human productivity are things that are ways that we can save money, right, in our organization, and even turn an ROI completely around by using AI. So those are concerns that we all have. The third parties are going to play a big role in how we protect ourselves, like Sachin said, and we can see that development coming in now.
Yeah, it's early days in some of that as well. Sorry.
And I
If
will
I could add on to- if I could add on to what Kate said, I think she hit the nail on the head. I would say that what I'll call the so-called typical user of AI right now, again, people like myself and who kind of operate in our world, there's two things that are going on. One is there is an overall suspicion that they're unsure whether they're going to be protected if they jump onto this train that's going by. The other part of the equation is they also recognize that they need to jump on the train or they're going to get left behind. And it's not about AI replacing jobs. It's people who know how to use AI. Those are the people that are going to be on that train ride for a while. But I would say it this way also, Kate, to your point. Again, people in my category, we are trusting that folks like yourself and Sachin and the experts are going to provide a measure of security so that we're going to feel comfortable about giving certain kinds of information. But I think you also said, and I agree, we've become pretty passive participants in just putting stuff out there without really acknowledging what we're doing, because most people, I believe, have come to the conclusion that, like, again, it was already said here today, well, you know what? The information's already out there. My bank's got it. My credit card agency has got it. The IRS has got it, and it's out there floating around, and there's nothing I can do about it anymore. And so this is just one more vehicle for us. But again, I think the risk benefit that people need to consider here is if they don't participate with the adoption of AI, what's that going to do to their world? What's that going to do to the work that they do, the company, but also their personal life? And so it's going to be it's going to be an interesting next year or two to see where we are. If we had this conversation 12 months from now, my guess is it would.
Yeah, and it for me, when I think about the adoption of AI, I'm looking at it from my user population, right? My internal user population. We're a 100-year-old privately held entity, right? Nobody should have any insider information at the Heritage Group because we're a private company. And but then I think about my high school senior and what's he doing with AI. And then I think of at the university level, right? What are they doing with AI? And so we have our student population, as our children, like the kids coming up, because they're using AI all over the place. They love the stuff. They have no idea what they're doing and what risks that they're taking. Interestingly, I had lunch a couple of weeks ago with a dean of the business school at the University of Indianapolis. And he let me see a draft policy for next year that isn't just allowing students to use AI, but enforcing it like, yes, you have to, and we're going to teach you the ethical use of AI. And that along with that goes security, right? How do we securely use artificial intelligence? So one of the things what Rick was saying is, yeah, I mean, those cars are speeding along, but the smart universities are going to teach their young people how to use this AI. So they're going to come out of college with a skill set that the rest of our people need to have, or they're going to get pushed out of their spots. Right. If we have our young people coming out of college, which I'm glad, right? I'm glad that they're teaching them this. But if we don't also take control within our own user populations and encourage the safe and ethical use of artificial intelligence, then our productivity, our ability to compete in the market is not going to be sustainable.
I guess
There's a question actually that we have from the audience now. So what are you seeing in regard to organizations investing in knowledge training with employees on AI basics, security, personally identifiable information, prompt engineering, use cases, et cetera? It seems this technology has been introduced in a Wild West approach without a basic on-ramp for most users. And I think that's something that we've seen. I will say this personally, I've spent part of my career in corporate learning. And as many of you know, corporate learning has, over the last several years, there's been a significant cutback in the number of people in that field. And unfortunately, it feels like it's right when we need them the most, when we have this new technology that's out in the world, we really don't have the infrastructure in place to support this. And training is critical. But a lot of times it's basically saying, hey, it is a little bit of a Wild West approach. Personally, I have not seen a large push into a lot of corporate level training, although there's starting to see some more aspects on that. Would love to open this up to the group at large, Rick in particular, because I know you're in this space as well, and work with a lot of folks on the HR side of the world.
But Art, let me just one more observation. I'm going to put this in the same category that I've seen in my career. When some new idea or trend or tool or knowledge platform comes out, it's like the most recent shiny object that people grab onto and want to use it in some way. The difference here, huge difference, is that this is not a trend. This is not something that's going to pass in a year or two. I think we all would agree that this is here to stay, and it's going to become an integral part of how we operate and how we function. And it might even become a necessity for people. This thing that Kate mentioned a minute ago, college graduates that are now coming out of the university system and the ones that are going to follow them, I think it's going to widen the gap between what they are able to do and how they can use AI and other people or older folks, say my generation. That gap is going to get wider and wider. And I think that's going to cause a whole nother set of challenges that we have that go far beyond privacy issues.
Yeah. Rightly said, Rick. But I think so. One of the biggest thing which we have to realize in this whole era as we move forward and have different kind of use cases in universities, enterprises, personal use, what we have to really realize is the persona in which we have to use these AIs. When it comes to schools and colleges, the persona could be more on the usage, more like a Google to start with for the students, right? And then kind of progress forward in rest of the areas rather than giving them the access to the entire open world and let them be completely searching anything and everything related to their educational stuff, right? So the persona seems to be very important even from the personal usage point as well. That's kind of stand true. What you really see AI as, are you trusting it literally like for anything and everything, or are you just taking it as more like a productivity tool for yourself, right? And same with the enterprises also, what really are you looking from the AI standpoint? Every department cannot use AI. That is 100% hands down. You cannot use AI in every department, right? There has to be a specific use case, specific reasons of using AI. So the very first thing now, what we have to do is we have known now AI is existing. It's going forward. We really have to define the usage criteria around it, and that's how you will be able to really use it more securely and more cautiously going forward.
Yeah, I really like the way that the question was posed. Like, what are we doing to basically onboard new users? Um, when we sorry, I pop-ups on the screen. Um, when AI hit and personal productivity AI, and I know Sachin, um, we like I said, we did a commercial use of AI, but we immediately developed a committee for education and communication around artificial intelligence and how and what is useful and allowed within our organization. But that brings up the great debate on how much training do you give to a user, because you can, you know, accidentally teach a user how to jailbreak, right? And then they can try to use the AI to prompt engineer themselves into information that they're not supposed to have, to get the security to let them see something that they're not supposed to see. And so, there's a and this debate is raging right now within my organization. How much do we teach people? Do we teach them how to use it to be for their personal productivity, or do we give them ethical hacking lessons to say, don't do this, right? Don't try to hack the system. Don't try and get into the CFO's salary, right? Whatever it is. And but that's a conversation that I think every company has to have internally, right? How much information and how well, do we want to teach the use of these tools? Because at this point, none of them are perfect. There's no security measure right now that's completely perfect that's going to keep you ultimately safe. Which is why, again, with the learning and development and also your communications departments, you have to partner with your communications departments, and the security team, your communications team, your learning and development team, and your digital productivity teams. They all have to work together to put it together a unified message with unified security, and talk to your users in a way that they understand. You can't talk to them super duper technical if they're not super duper technical people.
But Kate, the good news here is that your organization is at least having that conversation. And I can tell you from, again, my limited perspective, the organizations that I work with and my colleagues who work in others, this is basically not happening. They aren't having these conversations about things. But I'm going to offer one other perspective here. And this it might rankle some feathers of people who are listening to this right now. I think it might be helpful if we step back and look at what's happening with AI as not only a technology intervention, but this is actually a cultural change for a company. And if you want to really embed something in an organization and have it be sustained over a period of time, it needs to be embedded in the culture. And that's part of that conversation that needs to occur. So it's that combination of how does this affect what people are going to be doing? What do we expect of them? If you look at all the research on change management initiatives, 70% of them fail over time. And part of the reason for that is that they're not embedded in the culture. And so through the lens that I look at the world, I'm seeing this in part as a major technology revolution, but also as a culture change that needs to occur. And when we talk about adoption and having conversations, those are the conversations that we need to be having. And I think that would help mitigate some of the issues that we're talking about here today.
I agree with you, Rick. And I think a lot of this is AI is constantly updating, learning, and changing. And part of our job in the corporate world is to embed our individual organizations' values into that AI. Just as the people we hire have those values, we want to embed that so that the AI learns. And again, it's about trust. And just like with a new employee, you're implementing a new AI, it takes time to trust that and it learns as it goes. So we are going to see more trust in the answers that AI give. There's a question from Patrick. How will AI change how organizations think about growing their company from a human capital standpoint? And that's really interesting. Kate, you want to take a first stab at this one?
So there's two things. First of all, some people are super scared of AI because they think it's going to take their job away.
Yeah.
And so going back to the previous comment about cultural change, digital productivity, human productivity, that for many people is the big differentiator for AI. But the messaging that we have to explain to people is that we're going to use AI to take away the monotony. We're going to take away the overly complicated, very manual, time-consuming things, and then free you up to be more productive, doing more important things. That's the human capital management side of things. Yes, I mean, if you can gain even 10 or 15% more productivity from each of your people, then when you're planning onboarding new hires, when you're planning expanding your organization, then that is going to change the headcount. But being careful that let's not overly burden people with assuming that they're always going to assume 15% productivity improvement, right? So there is, and it goes back to culture, right? And will people refuse to adopt AI because they don't want to be 15% more productive? They like their routine, monotonous job. We've seen that. I've seen it. People are like, but I understand this process. This is what I do. I've been doing it for 15 years, and this is what I want to do. And we say, but if we automate it, then you can do something else. Well, they don't want to do anything else. So yes, it changes human capital management in a big way, but then you have to have the ability to take the people where you're automating parts of their job and coach them through the change, lead them through the change, encourage them through the change, provide them opportunities for upskilling. That's a huge one. The way that we manage our people is going to change. When COVID hit, we went from everybody's in the office to remote and hybrid environments. That changed the way that we manage people. Artificial intelligence and its effect on human productivity is going to change the way we manage people too.
Yeah, great points, Kate. Rick, I saw we lost you briefly, so I'm not sure if you got a chance to see the question prior to losing, but happy to. I know this is an area of expertise for you, and also want to pose this to Sachin as well.
I started to see it, and then I lost my connection, so I apologize.
Yeah. So here we go. How will AI change how organizations think about growing their company from a human capital standpoint?
Well, the implication is enormous because, again, this is kind of in my playground, if you will. But these are the conversations that I do not see happening at the executive level in companies, at the C-suite level. They're not talking about how something like this is going to affect the whole organization and how they should adopt it as a productivity tool. Instead, what a lot of companies are simply doing is just trying to grab it as much as they can and see how it might help them. Now, don't get me wrong, there are companies that are much more progressive and they're much more thoughtful and planful about how they're going to use a technology like this and begin to incorporate it as part of their strategic operating procedures. Those are the companies, I believe, that are going to really be able to take full advantage of this kind of a platform because it has such enormous implications. So what we're seeing here is the very early stages of companies beginning to figure out ways to use this. I think that's going to increase. But like many other things that have occurred in organizations in the last 100 years, if we don't adopt a systemic point of view about how this impacts talent, how it impacts the culture of the company, how it impacts how we operate, and privacy, obviously, security is a huge part of that conversation, but it's only a part of that conversation. I think that companies will miss the boat, so to speak, if they don't incorporate looking at organizations from a holistic point of view.
Agreed. Session, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, see, I bring sort of very different perspective on this one, not from the organizational side of view, but from the human capital side of view, right? The technology shift, I agree for AI, this has been leaps and bounds. None of the technology has ever been involved so fast the way we are seeing AI. But all the previous technology shift brought similar kind of fear that how the jobs will be managed, where the human capital will be going, so on and so forth, right? So one thing is that going forward, all majority of the people somehow have to learn this AI thing to stay up upfront, right? But then again, as Kate mentioned, that is what the mindset of majority of the organization is, not replacing the human capital with AI, but using that human capital more wisely in more strategic and productive things going forward. That's how it's gonna be, and that is how it has been in previous changes as well. Like back in time when cloud computing came, no, sorry, not the cloud came, everybody was very afraid of how on-prem system will go. Like we don't know how to use cloud, so on and so forth. But then there was a sustainability once you started understanding how the cloud work. Similarly with other technologies also, and that's how it's gonna be with AI. Now, one thing for sure, you do not have a lot of time with your learning curve because AI is being moving very fast. Every 2 weeks, you have really a very big change into how it is working. So it will be a combinational effort from the organization side, having a better communication towards their human capital, and then from the people's aspect also making them more available for getting ready to AI and having that training done.
And Sachin, build on that. This has now triggered conversation that this has triggered that I see everywhere. Shift. How do we structure? This is the conversation that's going on in a lot of organizations right now, particularly thinking about talent, capital, but also figure out going forward, add AI into it's going to reach what we do. It's really kind of blowing up ways of thinking about people in a lot about getting rid of things because they're and so into this part of the
Good. I think we're seeing. I had you broke up a little bit, Rick, but I think we got the big gist of that. So we certainly want to leave. I think we may have another question that's coming up, or maybe not. We're running. We're running. So why don't we kind of go to a roundtable here and just get some closing thoughts from everyone, and we'll start. Session, you want to start off?
Yeah. Well, what I'll say is to the consumer as well as the organizations, really don't treat AI as your trusted partner, really, right? AI nowadays has become more like that friend who has an answer to everything, right? And you don't cross-check it. So don't rely on it, trust on it. You know, treat AI as more like your personal assistant in that sense. And be cautious of what you are sharing with AI. Like, as an example, if you send your personal information over the email or to somebody else, you usually redact a lot of private information. Exactly do the same thing when you are doing with AI. Anonymize all of the majority of the sensitive information and go by that. And I'll say it very quickly. Back in time in our young age, we used to have these magazines, right? Where you can ask magazine and newspaper where you can ask questions, right, about something. And then you used to really go by, hey, my friend is having this problem. How can I go with that? That is exactly the anomaly you have to use with the AI also. Just wake your questions and go from there. And don't share a lot of sensitive informations.
Kate?
So I have two final thoughts, maybe two messages that anybody who's listening I would want to share. Living in the data analytics space for a long time, you would use a powerful data analytics tool like Power BI or Tableau to allow you to visualize data that you probably had already built a model for in Excel and was using pivot tables and charts in Excel. And some of the very early Power BI dashboards were essentially taking something people were doing manually in Excel and automating it in Power BI. My suggestion to people when they're talking about adopting artificial intelligence in their organizations is take something you already know and understand how it works and use an AI to automate it and improve it. Don't try and apply artificial intelligence to something totally brand new that you don't know anything about, that is just a pie in the sky dream. Take a model and then build that trust, build the relationship with the developer, with the manufacturer, with your security team. Take something you already know and apply AI to it, not something that's brand new that you don't know what to expect from it. And that's how we're all going to learn and adopt it together. So that's the first message that I have when it comes to artificial intelligence. And that can apply to doing a proof of concept project with Dapto, which we've done to automate a series of things and to look at data from a completely different perspective. But also when it comes to digital productivity and implementing Copilot or Power Apps or Power Automate or any of these other tools. So that's the first message. The second message is for any organization, whether you're teeny tiny or super big, it is cultural change, and you've got to work across all of your tenant boundaries, right? You have to get communications, HR, learning and development, your executive team. You've got to start talking about the implications of artificial intelligence all the way across. Yeah, start with simple tasks, right? The implications of artificial intelligence, because everybody hears about it all the time. The people who work for your organizations, from the truck drivers all the way to your IT professionals, to your most sophisticated mergers and acquisitions people, like everybody hears about it every day. And so as an organization, you have to have a plan on how you're going to use it in your organization, because if people are curious about it, they're either going to use it in shadow IT, which now it's out of your control, or they're going to go someplace else where they are using it. So those are my two points.
Great points.
All the folks that are listening in today.
Great. Rick, some closing thoughts?
I would echo Sachin and Kate. Be number one, afraid of this. It's going to continue to grow lives, be extraordinarily full, work life, but personal life as well. The message that would start with small tasks was get. The other part of that message, however, is don't be naive, meaning be careful about what you are sharing online or with this thing that may become your personal assistant, so to speak. Smart about it, really helpful in life.
Great advice. I think my parting comments, I know a lot of our audience is in the digital transformation space, and I would say You know, when I've got 20 years plus in helping organizations to select and acquire and implement digital transformation technologies. And, you know, over the last few years, as I've been helping companies wrestle with AI, I'd say my advice is don't think of AI as a replacement. It's more of an amplifier for your digital transformation strategy. And it's more about integration versus replacing things, but there are some new processes that we can integrate in. The second kind of closing advice is a little bit more on topic to what we were talking about is, you know, the cost of getting AI wrong isn't just about money. I mean, it's about trust as well. And the big thing is, you know, I've always worried about guardrails, but they don't slow innovation. They actually enable it, and they enable it responsibly, and they help it do it at scale. So I appreciate everyone's time and attention today. Thanks to the panel, and we appreciate the audience tuning in and the great questions you provided as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Digital Dialogue. Look for more episodes at noon Eastern Time on most Tuesdays of every month. Can't join the live session? You can watch the replay anytime on our YouTube channel.